What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Campaign Grind. I am Pedro Diaz. I am your host, and this is The Campaign Grind. We are here this week with our host, Mr. Ray Valdez. What's going on, man?
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
How's everything?
All right. It's just a few days older,
That's good, man. That's
trying
good.
to hang in there.
Today's episode, we're actually going to be talking about building a rapport and the importance of building a rapport in your campaign. So, this episode of The Campaign Grind is very important for any campaign, whether you're an incumbent, the first time you're running for office, or even if you're helping somebody out run for office. Building a rapport is the number one ingredient in any successful campaign. Ray, lots of people think when they run for office that all they need to do is file their paperwork, print some signs, some cards, and basically hand it out to people and talk to them. That's not the case. At the end of the day, you got to establish some rapport with these particular voters. You got to know what the issues are. You got to know what they like, what they don't like, and so on and so forth.
Build your
Build relationships.
And build their commitment.
Yeah, build the commitments. This, at the end of the day, you got to remember, once people start receiving their absentee ballots, or once people are in the booth to vote, they're going to remember exactly who reached out to them, who called them, who mailed them, who knocked on their door, who visited them personally, who took the time to actually speak to them, and not somebody that just called them when they received the absentee ballot because they need that vote. So you want to make sure that you establish this rapport well before the absentee ballots are received by the voters and well before early voting and election day. So you already have some time to build rapport with these people. You don't hit them up only once. You hit them up several times. You speak to them as a friend, because at the end of the day, once you get elected, you're going to be representing them. So you're going to need to know exactly what their issues are, and you got to feel comfortable knocking on their door, just like if you're going to ask them for sugar or something.
Yeah. No, the fact is that, a lot of people, they, pass the palm cards around, leave them on the doors, the door hangers, all this. And, a lot of the constituents, all they know the candidate from is a picture on that postcard. And the fact is that if you send the postcards and you leave the door hangers and you meet with them personally, now you're putting a face to that postcard. You're putting a person to that postcard, and that makes a big difference.
A world of a difference.
For your election and for your re-election if you get elected.
A world of a difference. A world of difference. So campaigns is not just about putting up signs, sending out mailers, and leaving literature in people's doors, trying to avoid them. You knock real quick once, you leave the literature, and you run to the next house because you don't want to talk to anybody. If you're antisocial, you don't want to talk to people, you don't want to establish a rapport with them, listen, don't even bother wasting your time running for office.
Exactly. If you're antisocial, don't run for office.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. So basically, build that rapport. That's the number one ingredient in any successful campaign. Remember, building a rapport, building that relationship is not something that happens overnight. So don't just think because you visited them, last month or 2 months ago, they're going to remember exactly who you are come election day. This is something that you got to continue doing. And this is actually one of the main reasons why these big family names, not only here in Miami-Dade County, but throughout the entire state of Florida and elections everywhere, these big family names are so successful because, they may not necessarily remember this generation of this particular family, but they remember the generations before them because they've established relationships with them. They know who they were. They went to school together. They worked together.
Yeah. In relationship to that, the fact is a lot of communities, in a district you have, or a county election, you have a lot of, difference in the social structure of the community. And, like here you have, like in my district, you have Little Havana, a lot of elderly people, a lot of first generation immigrants. And then you move on to Miami Beach, and in Miami Beach you have a lot of, real Americans born here, and so on, people that that are first, second, they third generation and so on in the area. And the thing is that you need to really build that relationship. You do need.
That's the bottom line.
You need to build a relationship. Very, very important. And the way to do that is to get out there and to meet the people. And go to the community centers.
That's what it is.
And visit with them, and like you said, know the issues in each community because like in my district, all these communities are very close communities.
They are tight knit.
You know, so yeah, so you go to Miami Beach, you have a different constituency, completely different than if you go to the Isles, or if you go to Little Havana, and so on and so forth. So you know you have a lot of Spanish people, you have a lot, you know, so your variety, you got to play with all that.
Yeah, the needs
You
of
know,
every pocket of the district or every pocket of the county and the state are very different than the others.
And they are, again, that's a close knit community,
Yeah.
and they'll vote. A lot of these communities vote as a block.
They do. Speaking of tight knit communities, this actually reminds me of, and this wasn't scripted or whatever, but this actually reminds me of one of the first campaigns I've ever done. And it was in a city in Sweetwater here in Miami-Dade County. And we were representing, it was an open seat. And then there was 3 or 4 candidates. We were representing one of them. But the front runner was basically, you know, somebody that had a big name there in the Sweetwater community. And then I remember election day, and I didn't know any better. Like I said, this was one of the first campaigns I ever got involved in. And this is really what put that stake in me. Like, listen, you need to establish these relationships. Is basically, we were early voting. I was there with my candidate, helping her out, handing out literature and talking to the voters and this and that, whatever. And I was like so excited because we were handing out a whole bunch of literature, and they were like, yeah, okay, great, yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
But then, one of the opponents, or the front runner opponent, was there with somebody else, you know, a very big, prominent person within the Sweetwater community. And that particular person was giving all these people hugs and giving them a kiss and telling them, listen, this is my candidate, vote for her, and all this other stuff. So once I started seeing, like, you know, we were giving them literature, and then they were going to this particular person. He was giving them a hug, giving them a kiss, letting them know, listen, this is my candidate. That's when it hit me. I was like, this shit is over.
Yeah.
This shit is over. And then I remember asking him, I'm like, how did you do that? Like, how do you know all these people? How do they come up to you, give you a hug, and give you a kiss, and talk to you like that? You know, I'm here running back and forth trying to give them literature. He's like, Pedro, honestly, this is, you know, it's been years in the making. You know, I started off here as a commissioner, went to mayor, then I went to another position, higher office. So I grew up with these people. These people know who I am. These people know my family.
Being in your area.
Yeah, so it's basically establishing that relationship, building that rapport with the actual voters. And I know it's a pain in the ass, especially if you're a first-time candidate, but I guarantee you it goes a long way in any election.
Becoming a leader with your constituency,
Yeah.
you know, and then becoming an elected official.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, you know, if you have a lot of money, you can bypass that and you can do an election in 3 or 4 months. But if you don't have, you know, a couple $100,000 in today's political world, then you better, you know, have the background of being an activist, a community advocate, and all these things, and also know that who the players are in that community, and you better have their support, because a lot of people in that community, like you were saying, that, you know, there may be 5 or 6 people in a certain community that they know, that people know them.
Yeah.
And if you have their support,
They're
you
gonna vote
have
for
their
you.
vote.
Yeah.
You
So,
know, so-
build the relationships, build the rapport with these voters, build the relationship with these community influencers per se, and, you know, work. At the end of the day, don't rely solely on money. You're gonna have to campaign. You're gonna have to knock on doors. Like I tell all of our candidates, the voters want to hear, smell, and touch the actual candidate. So you got to go off and do it. You can have volunteers go and do some literature drops, but the voters actually want to see, touch, and smell you as a candidate.
Yep.
But
And
moving
your
on,
message.
yeah, and your message. Moving on, it's before we close off the show, please, if you guys have any questions, give us a call, 1-888-688-DIAZ, or shoot me an email, pedro@diazcampaigns.com, and also don't forget to hit subscribe down on the bottom. There's 2 questions that we got from...
And you can go on Facebook and see all day.
You guys can go on Facebook and check it out too. But we got 2 questions before we finish off the show. It was 2 questions that we received, and I want to go into it. Basically, the first question, they were asking if mailers and phone banking are important in any campaign. I'm going to let you go first.
Mailers and phone banking.
Yeah,
I think that's, you know, it's part of the key package.
I think so too.
You know, that's some of the most important activities that you can have.
Yeah.
You know, really reaching out to the voter, and they feel that, you know, needed. They feel that you taking them into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And when that phone rings and they answer, and, you know, you have someone that is
A live person on the phone. Not a robocall, live people on the call.
Mentioning your name and recommending and saying that you're running for office and your number, if you have your number already, on the ballot and so on. That's very important.
Yep.
After,
So mailers and phone banking, important.
Part of the key package.
Absolutely.
With your visiting, knocking on doors, like you say, the palm cards, the door hangers, the message, I'm sorry I missed you. All of this has to be
It all works together. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm with Wade. Mailers and phone banking is an absolute must in any campaign. At the end of the day, you are only one person. You may have a team that knock on doors with you and whatnot, but the reality is that you want to be omnipresent. You want to make sure that whenever you're not knocking on the door, they're getting a phone call from your campaign. Whenever they're not getting a phone call from your campaign, they're receiving a mailer in the mailbox. So omnipresence, the more you are in front of their face, the more likely they are to vote for you come election day. Yep. The second question we got was, how can I approach these particular voters? They come in with their head down, they want no literature from anybody, and they kind of like beeline directly into the precinct to vote. So how do I approach somebody like that? How would you approach somebody like that?
We've worked the precincts in the past many times.
Yep.
And you know how important it is to reach out to those people that are walking in to vote at that moment.
Yep.
And a lot of people are already committed. Don't kid yourself. A lot of people they pass you like an arrow. Yep. They don't want anything. They don't want to deal with anybody because they know who they're going to vote for. But there's a lot of people that have no notion of who they're voting for, what the issues are. They haven't read anything and so on. And those people, I think it's probably, I don't know, at least 50-70% of the voters.
That know who they're voting for.
No, that don't know who they're voting
Gotcha.
for. So when you must be there at the precinct, or you have somebody there standing there with your sign, who's aggressive, who's handing the palm card to them and asking them for their vote for your candidate or for yourself.
Absolutely.
And you can't be shy, and you have to let them know. And sometimes I've heard the people turn around and say, well, how do you stand on this issue or that issue at that moment? And they're right in front of the precinct. They're going in to vote, and that's the moment that you can make a difference.
You gotta get them.
Sometimes 100 votes, 50 votes
makes a difference.
20 votes can make a difference to get a candidate elected in any community.
Absolutely, anywhere. So the question was kind of, how do they approach them? Because they go down with their head down. They don't want any literature from anybody. And a pretty neat way, because this actually happened in one of the last campaigns that we were involved in. We were there in early voting and election day, and then this guy, he was an incumbent. And there was people coming down. They wanted nothing to do with anybody. They didn't want to get literature from anybody. And then he would just go out to them, and say, hey, did I pass by your house? Because you got to remember, these people, they're getting down, they want to go vote. The last thing they're expecting is something as odd as, hey, did I pass by your house? They're used to, oh, please vote for this person, please vote for that person. But then when they actually hear something of like, hey, did I pass by your house?
Make it personal. Exactly.
It grabbed their attention, and I would see it. These people would stop and talk to them. Oh, I don't know. Did you? I don't remember this. And oh yeah, you did. So that's actually a pretty neat way and creative way to draw these uninterested early voting and election day voters to stop and actually hear you out. I'm sure that there's hundreds and dozens of those creative ways out there, but that's one that I actually came across, and I was like, hey, it's pretty neat. So
and I think that you should have a CAN presentation, a quick presentation that you can, tell the person, my name is so and so, my number is so.
Well, that's what he did.
I'm asking you, please vote for me and make the difference. Or whatever you're gonna say, but make a short message, and you got that CAN presentation. And sometimes you have 4, 5, 10 people coming to vote at the same time because they get enough work. It's that hour, between 5 and 7 that the precinct is open, and people are coming to wait. You don't want to, spend your evening talking to that one voter. You want to, be able to multiply yourself.
But that's what this guy was doing, which was really cool because people were getting out of the car. They wanted nothing to do with anybody. They don't want to get anybody's literature. We were there handing out literature, and this guy would just stand right in front of them and say, hey, did I stop by your house? and then they would stop because like, what the hell is this guy saying?
Yeah.
And then that's when he would give his pitch, and ultimately, long story short, the guy got elected. He won by like 70-something votes.
And I say, be loose, be loose, because have a posture of communication that an outgoing individual and so on. Because a few years back, I was in the staff of a city mayor that got elected at that time, and his favorite posture was to stand there on the corner with his arms crossed, and we were all running around with the signs and talking to people and so on. I had to keep telling him, please, hey, wave at the people on that passing by in cars, talk to people, say hello, etc., because it's incredible.
Yeah.
And you have to be outgoing. You have to be dynamic, because if you're facing a primary or you're facing 2 or 3 opponents and so on, it's very difficult. It's very tough, and it's no good to finish second.
No, it's
and
not.
I know Pedro, and we've been at many precincts together, and I know that you stand there watching the people and telling your candidates, say, hey, go, pass the buck, because they just hang around, start talking to each other, to other people, visiting, socializing, and you're there to work. When you're at the precinct, that's the last call, bro. That's like 2 o'clock and you're going home in the morning, the lights are out.
Yeah.
So, you better make the best you can at that precinct voting time.
Yeah. We'll actually do an episode on that, on pretty cool, neat tricks and tips for early voting on election day. Because, that's true. It's going to throw something in there, and then we're going to close it off. But what happens, and the reason I'm like that, is because that dog has bitten me a couple of times in the past. Basically, we were representing a candidate, and we were working early voting or election day with our candidate. And then the opponent would get like the spouse to come and talk to the candidate.
Yes.
And then all these other voters were just walking right by him.
And then somebody else, your opponents are catching them. Yeah. So they got all these tricks.
Yeah, that's why I was like, you know what? Forget about it. Yeah. But guys, thank you very much for tuning into this week's episode of the Campaign Grind. As always, if you have any questions, give us a call. 1-888-688-DIAZ, 1-888-688-DIAZ. And do you have anything else to add?
Fantastic. See you next time.
See you guys next time. And don't forget to click subscribe on the bottom. Until next time, I am Pedro.
See the previous podcast.
Check out the previous one. It's going to pop up here somewhere or something like that. Just click it.
Yeah.
You guys will check it out.
YouTube.
And don't forget to click subscribe. Thank you guys very much. Until next time, I am Pedro Diaz, signing out.